Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at a winter storm that's likely to impact and drop several amount of inches of snowfall for the Northeast. Especially for Maine, there could be up to 2 feet in some areas. Anywhere in this blue area they have in Maine, all of Vermont, southern parts of Vermont, all of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and all the way back up to Maine is a winter storm watch. You have high wind watches on the Cape and in Nantucket, and then you have storm warnings and gale warnings off in the Atlantic coast. If we take a look at the GFS here, it shows that you have the storm forming right in the Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia border. If we continue here, it shows the storm off in New Jersey by Saturday morning at 7 a.m. The storm is just off the coast of Delaware and southern New Jersey, as this storm is going to make a north-northeast track and end up in the Gulf of Maine, as shown here by the GFS. Before it does that though, it goes just south of Long Island, the eastern tip, and it makes its way towards Nantucket. On the backside, it starts to bring down some cold air from Canada as it strengthens. As this happens, you have rain changing over the snow in parts of Massachusetts, Connecticut, and possibly some parts of the coast in Connecticut and Massachusetts as well. You could see that Boston, especially, changes over to heavy snow, at least shown by the GFS on 7 p.m. The storm is in the Gulf of Maine, intensifying, and on the backside you have heavy, wet snow, as shown by the GFS. But in the rain parts, if we go back here, you can see you have heavy rain shown on the GFS. As this is happening, you have lake effect snow coming off the lakes and causing some snow to come off. As time goes by, the storm eventually starts to depart ways by 1 p.m. Sunday and gets out of there by around 7 a.m. Monday. If we take a look at the total snowfall map shown by the GFS, it shows pockets in the green in Maine and northern parts of New Hampshire could see anywhere from 12 to possibly pockets of 24 inches in Maine and New Hampshire. Anywhere in this pink area is above 6-7 inches, and that's where your stripe will be 6 to 8 inches will be. Anywhere in this light blue is 3 to 5 inches, and then this dark blue is possibly up to an inch. If we take a look at a different model, a GFS Para, the new run of the GFS actually came out. Let's take a quick look at this. It shows pretty much the same thing, but it shows actually the storm moving back a little westward here. So it shows snow, the heavy snow, before it gets to Nantucket, in Connecticut, in the western parts of New Hampshire, Vermont, and southern parts of New Hampshire. That's a slight shift to the west, but nothing crazy. You still have the storm just south of Long Island and Rhode Island, making its way up to the Gulf of Maine. You still have rain changing over the snow on the backside, and that's pretty much the same thing. If we take a look at the GFS Para here, it shows a storm forming, go south of Long Island, just off the coast of New Jersey, and you have rain changing over to snow in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire border. And it's almost an all snow event for the northern parts of Maine as the storm goes into the Gulf of Maine and departs ways. Again, total snowfall. The same areas that had that 24-25 inches is right here again, shown by the GFS Para. You have that stripe of 12 to possibly 24 inches a little farther east and more northward, while New Hampshire is some parts of New Hampshire, at least shown by the GFS Para, barely gets up to an inch, which I doubt. I think at least 2 inches in New Hampshire, and then Vermont a couple inches as well. As shown by Massachusetts here, the GFS Para does drop a couple inches, possibly even several inches in parts of Massachusetts. If we take a look at the Canadian, it almost has the same area that it has the 12 to 18 to possibly up to 24 inches as the GFS Para. You have it again up in northern parts of Maine and extreme parts of Canada, but your 6 inches is locked up in the northern parts of New Hampshire and northern parts of Maine here. If we take a look at the icon, it shows almost the exact thing as the GFS does, the regular GFS. 6-inch line goes down into central parts of New Hampshire and central parts of Maine and ends up in northern parts of Maine. Notice how the coast doesn't have any snow here. Barely any snow actually, at least shown by the icon. This run shows warm air staying and overriding the cold air that's being pulled down and just stays as a rain event. But for inland areas, it has a lot of snow in the mountains and northern parts of New Hampshire and Maine. If we take a quick look at the NAM that we have here, it shows a storm forming in South Carolina and North Carolina border, making its way towards Delaware and Maryland, goes off the coast, just south of Long Island now by 9 a.m. Saturday. The snow starts to change, the rain starts to change over the snow here in the parts of Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and then it starts to blow up the storm. It starts to go under rapid intensification here. It shows heavy wet snow for Boston area, well, just outside the Boston area, almost all of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and especially up into New Hampshire Maine border. Look how deep that blue is. That is really heavy snow here shown by the NAM. And as we continue, you can see the cold air starts to weaken a bit, and you have some rain mixing in at the coast and possibly further inland in Maine. But that quickly changes over to snow again as the night time comes, and then you have the storm exiting. If we take a quick look at the total snowfall totals here, you can see it has a big pocket of 20 inches in Maine and western parts of New Hampshire. This 24 inches is in the border of Maine and central New Hampshire. And then the 6-inch line is on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont, all the way down to possibly even to middle of Connecticut and maybe even into parts of Boston. You can notice now there's snow all the way down to the coast on this run, even in parts of Rhode Island and southern parts of Connecticut. And then you have snow actually on the back side of this. Well, another storm is going to form and go straight off the coast because there's no jet stream to pick this storm up and drive it up the coast. So it will just go straight out the coast, causing Virginia. Let's see if the NAM picks it up. It shows snow for Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and possibly into Tennessee. If we take a look at the National Weather Service total snowfall map here, you can see that the 1-inch line does go on the border of New York and Vermont, all the way down into Massachusetts and northern parts of Connecticut. It slices through Rhode Island, cuts it in half, and possibly some snow even down to the Cape. You have snow crossing all the way down to the coast until you get to extreme northeast Maine where there's no snow there. But if you take a look in the northern parts of Maine and New Hampshire, you see pockets of 8 to possibly even 20 inches right here. You have the 5 to 8 range striping down from halfway in between Vermont all the way down to Massachusetts, maybe down to the border of Connecticut and back up to Maine. If we take a look at my snowfall map right here, you can see that you have pockets of 12 to 18 and then, you have 12 to 8 inches, 12 to 18 inches, and then pockets of 24 in this red area, 8 to 12 inches in this pink, which stretches from New Hampshire all the way up to Maine. You have 5 to 8, which stretches from the border of Vermont and New Hampshire down to into Massachusetts and back up to Maine. The 3 to 5 inch range stretches from in between Vermont all the way down to Massachusetts, extreme northeastern Connecticut, and just to the west of Boston back up to Maine. The 1-inch line goes from the border of New York and Vermont down through Massachusetts into northeast Connecticut and down into the Boston area and back up to Maine. This yellow pocket right here, this is supposed to say of, sorry about that guys, pockets of, there we go, 5 inches. This is lake effect snow right here, this yellow lake effect, 1 to 3 inches, pockets of 5 inches, and this is the likely storm track that we have right here. This L is the low pressure system, and this black line is the track of the storm. I hope everybody had a great day and stay